Hello, and welcome back to the Double Radio Gamescast. As always, I am your host Ryan, and I'm joined today by my lovely cohort of co-hosts, Alex,
Hello.
Wyatt,
Hello.
and surprised Brett.
Hello. I'm never here. Apparently, I'm the surprise now.
Yeah, surprised is that all four of us are here finally. It's been a hectic couple weeks, so we're back. We're back in the groove. We've been playing some Game Pass games, and we want to talk about them. Is that right? This
No,
massive outpouring
perhaps.
of
It's not
cheer.
right.
Great.
I'm
What a
excited
way
to see
to
who goes
start.
first if it's not me.
I have to keep double checking my notes to make sure I actually played all of them and didn't imagine.
It sounds like
I've actually
you know,
played
it's
them.
really funny. I want to
feel
say
like
it's
I'm
really
missing one.
it's really funny because we're all being kind of like low energy at the moment, but this is probably the best batch of like Game Pass games, like the most
Oh, yeah.
consistently
Yeah.
quality. Like
We didn't have anything that didn't work this time. I think that's the
That's
real
true.
thing.
we did
Nothing's
not have
good.
any non-guns.
Yeah, we often have played games that just don't really function. Didn't happen this time. But hey, if people who only listen to the mainline podcast, this is a transfer over from the separate side thing called Game Pass Games Club. It's now part of the main podcast just because it's hard to coordinate when we don't have a set recording time for it because we were just kind of doing it whatever. So now it's just going to be once a month on the main show. So this is our July one. We'll have one in August, and then we'll go from there. Does that sound good? Everyone happy with that? Great.
Begun the
Yeah.
integration process.
Yep.
Be warned.
Interlinked.
Any
With
like
Great interlinking.
when things like God of War come out and whatnot, and inevitably 1 to 4 of us want to talk about them in a lengthier format, we will still have like regular games clubs that will be those. But those
God of War, never heard of her.
that took you so long.
Don't know what that is. I'm really tired. Okay, I was up
It's
until like
okay.
6 a.m. last night. I'm exhausted.
Yeah, I built IKEA furniture all day yesterday, so we're in we're in the space of everyone being a little bit tired and exhausted, which is always a fun state of mind to record these in. Yeah, we played some Game Pass games. I'm gonna kick us off with a discussion of our first game, and we're just gonna go around the table after that and talk about all of them. We're not gonna talk about games news for these episodes because that's not fun. So
Screw that.
screw
Get it out.
that. All the
That's
bad
not
stuff
Game
that happened
Pass.
this week, we'll talk about that next week.
It's time for
Icky.
it's time for personal opinions and experiences on things we've
Yep.
actually played.
Hey,
Mhm.
this is also where I put the disclaimer. Look, just because we don't like something doesn't mean it's bad. That's if you like something that we don't like, that's fine. You're
And
likely going to find
recommend-
that we disagree with each other on multiple games every
Our-
time we do this.
Our opinion is more correct than yours, but you know that's fine. No, I'm kidding.
I
I'm kidding,
wouldn't
I'm kidding.
recommend basing your entire personality off of hating the things we like.
No.
Or
And if you
loving
want to
Yep.
know why we like or dislike the things we like, you should go back to that one episode we did in like April where we said basically why we
Yeah,
say these things.
that I believe is currently one of the pinned clips from that is the channel trailer. So
Oh, what was the title? Was
Easy
that
to
the
find.
personal bias episode?
that was the climate of games, I think is what we called it.
Mm.
Yes.
Oh, the
Um,
gamer psychoanalysis.
Yeah.
Gamer Psychoanalysis, that was the
Yeah.
updated title.
Yeah.
My
Yeah,
favorite
it's a good
type of
one.
essay.
All right, I'm going to kick us off, and we're going to talk a little bit about Lost in Random. This is the newest game on this list, I believe, that EA put out. I want to say early this year, late last year. It's been a while because I remember this is one of those games that I think Wyatt and I were like super into when we saw it on at E3, and then just completely forgot about for the entire duration until well after it was out.
That tends to happen around those kind of events, though. It's like you
You
get
see so many
excited
cool
about
things.
something, you see so many cool things, and then it just poof, it just completely disappears. It gets
Yeah.
lost in random, one might say.
You could say that.
So it's
Yeah,
all
this
good.
is a unique little game that I think the best way to describe this is if anyone has played the old From Software games, Lost Kingdom 1 and
in
2.
random.
Yeah, it's the same title too. On the GameCube, it's a game where you run around with cards and summon things that, well, in this case, they don't fight for you. At least not that I've found so far. But you create weapons and whatnot that you fight with. It's a cool little system. But this is way more of a narrative thing than I had pinned it as. At least in terms of like when someone tells me they're making a dice-based deck building card game action thing, my mind goes to roguelike. I think that's just because of things like Slay the Spire, basically making that a very common genre grouping. But yeah, I did not expect this to be as narrative as it is. I think I came away from this feeling most like this was almost in the vein of something like Psychonauts, at least in
Yeah,
game
I got that
space.
feeling. Yeah.
But yeah, I really enjoyed my I want to say hour and a half with this so far. This is one of the two from our list that I think I am going to end up finishing, just because Lost in Random has been very charming so far, and it also has kept the pace up for something story based to where I don't feel like I'm treading water, which is often a problem in games because like large chunks of Lost in Random's opening bits are you walking around and talking to people. Which when the trailers for this game and whatnot have this cool like action combat system, you might go, huh? Where's
There's a
that?
lot of talking.
A lot of talking.
There's
I played that at the very start in the tutorial, but then none of that's here. What do you do? Where'd my game go?
Where'd the game go?
Where'd the game go?
Going.
I don't think that's how it ends up feeling. I think this has treaded the line very well between getting you started quick enough and not still having things to surprise you with down the line. I do think the way the tutorial was done, which basically it drops you in the I assume from how far I am in the game, this is like the past of the queen that is currently in the game. Yeah, it's a flashback.
Yeah.
That shows you some past events of the game, and you get to play out a little combat encounter, which is cool. But you don't get any instruction. It does the thing that they don't tell you anything when you're dropped in, which is fine until like midway through it, and then you just don't engage with the combat for like 45 minutes after that. And I think that created a bit of a problem where it's information overload and then nothing. Which can be an issue. I don't think it was a huge issue here just because the combat system's not that complicated when they give it back to you. They do a good job of kind of explaining things, but it did mean that at least if you play this game, you're going to get to see what the gameplay is like very early, so you'll know if you like it pretty quickly.
Give you a little taste of what's to come.
They don't do the JRPG thing of hiding the combat for the first hour.
3 hours,
hour to 3 hours. Yeah, I'm curious what everyone else has thought about this.
For me, this is the game I played the longest ago. I forget exactly when I played it, but it's been a while. So I don't remember it as good as I do the other ones, but I remember, like you said, it was very charming. I think the aesthetic for it is it's unique in that there's not like a buzzword to describe it. Like things kind of look like they're made out of like clay. Almost, it's very. I mean, you can kind of just like look at it, and words like British come to mind.
Nightmare Before Christmas is probably the one that kept getting.
I also got some sock puppet feel.
Well, I was playing. I was thinking a combination of Psychonauts, like was already mentioned, and also a bit of like Coraline. And if you just kind of like smash those together, is kind of what you get.
I think this isn't. There's a different game that's like actually being like the animations are being recorded in like claymation stop motion stuff, but this game I think they did make at least some of like the characters, environments and stuff like originally in like clay as actual figurines. I feel like they did like a
definitely makes sense.
A Vidoc about that for one of the E3-esque events they showed.
A lot of the
Harold Halibut, yeah.
Yeah, Harold Halibut was the other one.
A lot of the environment is stuff that is like regular sized teapots converted into houses that these small people live inside and whatnot. And you kind of have this like very Honey I Shrunk the Kids, loose Tim Burtonized aesthetic running through, which I think ends up being very fun.
There is a very interesting sense of scale you get that somewhat changes throughout the different worlds, but it's first set on by like how big the dice are, and then the distinguishable objects you can see in the setting. It's like, oh yeah, like you were saying, that's a big teapot.
Yeah.
Also the general texture of material too.
What were you going to keep saying, Brett, as I cut you off?
How dare you? But as like I said, it's been a bit, but I did take some actually like legitimately good notes for once. So I'm remembering now. This game, and this is not the only game that does something like this. And this is one of my one of my detractors for this being a perfect video game. Um, I am not a big fan of when I'm playing the video game and I have free will to do whatever I want within the game space, and they try to put a narrator over my head all the time. Shut up. I don't care. I'm gonna do. I know what the character wants to do because it should be what I want to do as the player anyway. And when you try to mix in some wacky, unfunny dialogue in there as well, I was not I was not a fan of the narrating in this game. From what I can remember, especially, it just kind of came off a little, not like super cringy, but a little bit like, okay, where's the option to turn this off so that I can just play the video game at my own pace and not be like, if this isn't story time, because the story being told like by like going into the dream spaces and like seeing what the main character like is actually seeing, and like seeing the events happen in her past to her sister or whatever, and like that is all very interesting and well done. I don't think they needed narration for this at all, because just the actual in-game storytelling was fine.
Is there a
Mhm.
setting for the narrator? Because I feel like I remember
There is in
the narrator
Biomutant.
joking about it.
I don't think there is in this. You might be thinking of the Stanley Parable, because the narrator does joke in the Stanley
Okay.
Parable about turning itself off. Brett, I respect this opinion. Hard
How dare
disagree.
you.
Oh.
Now, I do agree. I think most games with narrators that I've played have not turned out. Actually, no. Only one that I played with a narrator I haven't actively liked, which was Biomutant. The others, Stanley Parable, Bastion, and whatnot, I've generally liked the approach of narrators. I don't think Lost in Random does it as well as Bastion, especially, which I still think is probably the gold standard. But
It definitely has charm, but it's not up there with the best.
And to be honest, we have another game on this list that has a narrator that I think
Yeah.
adds a lot more to the game than this one does.
yeah,
Man, I
I'll
can't wait
say.
to have an argument about that too.
So I think
It doesn't
the
like people
narrator in Lost in
No.
Random is really here to keep you moving forward a little bit and make sure that the player doesn't feel too lost, because I do think
in random.
this game has a little bit of, I don't want to say baby's first adventure feel, but a little bit of that, where you can tell this game has a combat system that's a little weird, and I think it knows that, and it wants it to be approachable by a lot of people, and so they designed it in a way where you have this narrator kind of hand-holding you, which I think is probably the part that you dislike the most, Brett, is that
Yes.
like constant push forward that the narrator does. I don't necessarily like that part, because I tend to fall on the side of, I think Bastion's narrator works really well because he tends to wait until you've done something to then comment on it. So that's the part that I liked about Lost in Random's narrator, is there's still moments where if you go off the path and like go explore the side area, the narrator will sometimes comment and whatnot.
And
I
the
think
other
that
thing
worked well.
sorry. The other thing I'll add to it as well is there's a lot of the presentation in this game is very like kind of weird looking children's book, children's storybook. And so in that respect, I actually like the narrator because it kind of added to that aesthetic a little bit. There's a lot of moments where you're like turning pages and you're seeing these really interesting looking illustrations and stuff like that. So I think it kind of increases that that kind of feel for the art
There's a
style.
comment very early on that the narrator makes where he goes, and everyone has their own narrator, or something along those lines. I thought that was very a cute little nod to it being an in-universe thing, which I could believe with the setting that they built. So
it's also another thing. One of the collectibles are pages from a storybook.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
So it has a really nice theme that it constantly sticks with, and I think everything in the game is of service to that theme. It doesn't. So far as I've played, which is up until about the midpoint of Freedom, everything still pretty much feels like really nicely on theme for each of the different areas. There's nothing too just completely out of whack, as far as
I did
narrative
overwhelmingly
goes.
feel like while I was playing this, like I was playing a late PS2, early PS3 game. And that's a feeling that I so much appreciate. Just because I don't think this would have. The fact that this game came out of EA stuns me.
Yes.
Yeah.
actively.
Much like something else.
Well, this is part of their like detached indie program where they just
Mhm.
kind of help fund things and then they leave it alone. Because if you remember,
Yeah.
Hazelight games are also in that same realm. So you have
Mhm.
things like
It Takes Two.
It Takes Two, thank you. Or you have what's it called? Yarn or Thread? What's that?
Oh,
Oh,
That
Unraveled.
platformer game,
Unraveled.
Unravel. Thank you. I was on the right track. You just have these like really cool, often visually striking indie games that are technically published by EA, but it has none of their fingerprints because they're so hands off with these projects.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it usually produces really, really. I can't think of anything off the top of my head that hasn't been received at least decently out of this program.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they get that at least like a little bit of that like production value to actually make something out of their project.
And
And I think
marketing.
yeah, that too. But like I think especially in Lost in Random's case, like the one thing above all that it really has going for it is that like this game is just like super creative and it's very clear that like no one stepped in to be like, that's not allowed. Stop doing that.
Yeah,
And
we
like
can't do
clearly
this.
exactly, yeah. They just like they ran crazy with the whole like numbers and dice thing and like nothing else in my vast expanse of knowledge is like that.
Why
And
are
I
all
think
these rocks made out of dice? It doesn't make any sense.
it
Get it
doesn't
out
make
of
any
here.
sense. But it
Hey, you're
it's not-
missing several microtransactions. We need to put those in.
can you imagine like what even oh
It's
god.
a game called Lost in Random. Why don't we have random surprise mechanics?
Oh my god.
The
Man.
dice loot box.
Hey, dice are just loot boxes, including in
It's
Lost in
true.
Random. Whenever you throw the dice, it's a little loot box. You get to roll and see
That's
if you get
true.
the good.
Alex, you
My
good? You good?
I have another question for I think I don't know who else got further.
No.
But I think I think I'm also in the same boat as Ryan where I played like an hour and a half and that was pretty much it. But are you able to actually like build a deck?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
actually?
Yeah,
Because
I'm not.
you can like cards appear, but they're all random and you just have to pick from whatever things they throw at you.
Yeah, once you get
No, the
15
only
cards.
The random ones you have
okay,
at the start are
actually,
the ones that you picked up from the starter deck, essentially. Now,
okay.
You can
to my
you can also
understanding, oh, go ahead, Alex.
you can find some if you do certain side quests. You're awarded cards, and you can also buy them from many decks.
Yep.
Okay.
But
And to my understanding, this game is relatively short. I think I've been told that it's between like 7 to 8 hours or 7 to 10 hours, depending on how thorough you are. Again, I'm being very thorough, so I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah.
super far.
what world have you made it to?
I'm in Two Town right now, so
Uh,
I'm not as far as you are, but I'm having a good fun with this game. I think it's enough to keep me playing through the whole way. I don't know how it's gonna hold up. That's the one thing that I'm super curious about, is if it keeps the like same energy level of the start and just like continues the wacky storytelling all the way through, because there's like an early cutscene where a kid is having their birthday and it turns out on your 12th birthday you get nabbed by giant alien robot looking things, and then you got to roll a giant dice that determines where you live. Feels very Game of Thrones, or not Game of Thrones, Hunger Games in how it
Oh,
functions. And that cutscene was great. I want more of that. So
oh, also the stylization of how
yeah,
wibbledy wobbledy that metallic structure was on the spider. Oh, that's oozing with style.
yeah, it's
Um,
very fun.
That
I
does
have
remind me. Oh no, go for it.
I have two things that I'd like to talk about. One of them is me mentioning the unfortunate downsides, and the other one that for me and for someone with the visual and head problems with the game. The other one is what was your favorite card in the deck to use so far?
Oh, I love me some
Uh,
bombs.
I oh, you're a bomb guy. All right.
I'm a big
I
fan of bombs.
my favorite card so far has been the giant mace. That
Mm.
you can nice heavy attacks and also spinning with it. You use the gyroscope.
Yeah, the
It's
only thing
fun.
I've thought actually feels relatively unsatisfying is the bow,
The
because it's very
aiming.
plinky. It doesn't feel like you're aiming a bow. It feels like you're aiming a little
Yeah.
pea shooter.
Yeah. Speaking of
It,
pea
it
shoot,
functionally it's fine, but in gameplay it doesn't feel that great.
I do enjoy aiming for the crystal weak points with the slingshot though, and yet with the completionist bit, I'm trying to find every single coin pot I possibly can.
Yeah, and for people who haven't played this, which is probably most people listening to this, the way that combat in this works is when you have this little slingshot, which is your default weapon. That's the only weapon you have when you enter combat. You then plink away at little crystals on the outside of enemies. Then you can send your little dice boy to go collect the energy. The dice boy will then be able to be rolled, and you can collect energy based on what number you roll on a die, and then you get to play cards from your deck that you have. And those cards do things like create a bomb that you can then shoot with your shooter or hit with another weapon and it will explode, or heal you, or summon a weapon that you get to use for a limited amount of time or a limited number of hits.
And the cards have costs to them, like in sort of Hearthstone gameplay, with you have this much energy to use based on the amount of crystals you've shattered.
It kind of reminds me of like if you're playing Guardians of the Galaxy, but all of your abilities are random, and you don't really you don't have like a set number on like your D-pad or whatever. It's just random abilities.
I mean, if you're like me, half of your abilities are health potions.
It actually, to me, I think the closest modern combat system I've played to this would probably be Xenoblade. Just because Xenoblade has like that kind of build up this resource over time that you then use in this one moment to get like big damage out, essentially. I think that flow is very similar to how Xenoblade games tend to play, but a little bit faster pace because this is obviously like an action game and not a JRPG. But yeah, the wildly similar thing is Lost Kingdoms. Incredible game. It is a GameCube gem that I highly recommend anyone go out of their way to try. Where you summon cards and they create things that fight for you, and it's very similar to this in a good way.
The bad bits for me, unfortunately, and pretty much the only one that I think is mentioning because it could be a time ruiner for people. I've had to play this game in very short bursts, like below 30 minutes or so, because in the combat parts and looking for all the coin bits, there's a lot of moving the camera around, or at least trying to. The camera is it has, I feel like it has some strange acceleration to it, and
like it does.
Yeah,
there's some weird
it feels like
acceleration
it's
to it.
It's a little bit.
It's very sticky and slippery at the same time, and there are different portions of when you're walking, it'll just wrench control away from you. It's like, no, over this way, no, over this way, and it's really nauseating. Unfortunately,
what controls were you using?
What do you mean?
Like keyboard and mouse, or
keyboard and mouse.
Okay.
I'd maybe try with controller, because I think the camera looks a little better on controller.
I compare it to my experience playing Star Wars Battlefront 2, the new one, where it just doesn't it feels like the DICE forgot to make how to make a shooting game. At this one, I'm not. This one I really can't be mad because it's not demanding competitive plays from you or anything. It's just if you can hit the rocks, it's fine. But also at the same time, from certain distances, it just feels like whatever dead zone sensitivity setup they got with the sticks just did not. It was just too gummy.
This is why I'm a big proponent of have a dead zone menu in your game, even if no one tune it so people don't need to touch it, but have it there in case someone has an issue and then they can fix it, and that way no one gets mad. I agree that the dead zones are definitely a little weird here. It feels like the acceleration curve is nothing, then very fast, then even faster, rather than having a nice ramp up.
I wanted to ask you guys what you felt about just specifically character animations, because I kept going back and forth. I was like, they feel kind of a little stiff, a little clunky to me, and I'm having such a hard time with, does this fit this art style or not? Because part of me wants more rubbery, kind of fluid animations, but also it kind of fits a lot of like the angular looks of everything. I don't know. I go back and forth constantly.
I think it's a little off, but it does fit it with
I think
a
it's
lot
super
of
clearly budget.
characters having the
Yeah.
And a lot of that could be a budget thing too.
I think 100% this is everything's hand animated, and there might be like a tiny bit of mocap and lips or something, but everything here looks to be hand animated, and that takes a lot of time, especially in a video game, to get right, especially with the weird proportions that these characters have. All of them have different strange proportions, and so I imagine animating most of these characters is a nightmare. Yeah, I think they did the best with the time that they probably had to do it. And I wouldn't say it detracts from the game for me, but it is a thing where if you're expecting AAA quality animations here, keep in mind that this is a smaller team being published by EA and not EA proper. And so it's good to have your expectations in check of like, this is more indie to AA than a AAA level thing, and I think you'll probably be pretty happy with it.
And not to say, I mostly noticed the animations in like dialogue scenes or cutscenes or something, but like in gameplay, I feel like it's a lot better. Like specifically, I think run cycles and stuff for the most part look pretty good.
A lot of the weapon animations are pretty good too.
Yeah, no, definitely. So yeah, it's not to say that all of them are bad. It's just there were occasional moments where I was like, "Eh."
Now,
Like,
I do have one other gripe to add. Look, I really dislike when there is forced slow walking in games when there doesn't, like, I understand it if I'm walking with a character and they're talking to me and they're walking at a pace that allows the full conversation to happen.
It's preferred, actually.
But that doesn't happen in this game.
Yeah.
Like, there are, in all the things that you do need to listen to a conversation to, most of the time it does give you enough time to make sure it happens. Except for the start, when you are constantly like moving in and out of this small like house area to interact with things. If you leave the house, you immediately then start a cutscene that cuts off whatever audio was playing beforehand, and it forces you to walk very slowly in that area, despite you most of the time not talking to anyone. And so you're just kind of walking in silence for a significant amount of time in that starter area, which I think just feels a little lame when they do have like a dash button that they let you use as soon as you leave that starting bit, which is just weird to me. I don't understand why that tutorial wasn't earlier, because I think and the button just doesn't work before then. That's the note here. You can't like mess with the controller and find the button and be able to go. No. It doesn't work until the tutorial plays. So yeah, I think that's just a confusing choice when it doesn't seem to have been made for dialogue. It just seems like they wanted to have the tutorial for dashing be later in the game, and I don't know why. Yeah, I think overall this was really fun. I had a good time with it. I think this is one of the ones that I plan on finishing relatively soon, because I only started playing this game last week, so I have not had a ton of time with this. But I want to play a lot more of it, because I think the dice system is very fun. I'm glad that this is probably a shorter thing, because playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Been playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla for the last like 2.5, 3 months.
I'm sorry.
Oh God,
I'm having a good time, but I want it to be over.
No. This is what I'm saying, Ryan. This is why I hate it now. I was enjoying myself, and then there was a certain point where I was like, "Why hasn't this ended yet?"
It's not even that I want it to
where
be
did
over.
the pacing and why isn't there any?
When you're making a game that long, I think you need to take the Skyrim approach of if someone wants to finish a quest line, let them finish that quest line very quickly. But instead, what happens is the main quest line in that game of like, and I say the main, there is no main quest line to my knowledge. It's just do whatever you're doing.
Oh.
And then your family quest line, which is the one that I'm most interested in, is extended so lengthily out over the game where you have to go do all this unrelated stuff before you can continue it for no reason that I can find. It seems to be actually no reason. And that is infuriating to me. Of like, why? I just wish I could finish this and then go do the other stuff, rather than intersperse it in the way that it's interspersed. Because then I'm like forgetting details and whatnot, because I just did a different story and then came back to this one. It's just such a strange structure, and I think I wouldn't be getting burnt out otherwise. But
do you think it's because of their because I know this is happening a lot in Odyssey, where supposed side quests but not kind of semi side quests were led to like integral decisions for the main plot. It's just like, oh, you made this decision, and it's gonna come back to bite you in the butt later.
I have not found a side quest decision that has done that, and I'm pretty far in the game. I hope. I'm like 80 something hours in at this point, 90. So I sincerely hope I'm pretty far in.
There was a decision I made 20 hours in that affected something I did 40.
Well,
for Odyssey.
There's a jump near the end where it's like one last zone, I think, and it's like a gap of like 30 recommended levels or like 20 recommended levels.
Yeah, I'm already over leveled as hell. I think they buffed XP game because I'm very over leveled. Assassin's Creed Valhalla is very far off topic, so I want to jump us back in. I want to get conclusions from everyone else about Lost and Random. Is this something you think you'll finish? How much do you enjoy it? Would you recommend other people play this? You know, the default.
I'm absolutely going to finish playing this, but it's gonna be taking a while with those 25-minute bursts. Playthrough. Yeah, and finding time to do it too with current schedule stuff. But I really want to.
Yeah, it is hard not to recommend something if it's on Game Pass, right? And I'm looking up the price of it right now. It's $30.
Yeah, it's
$30.
I feel like I'd be pretty happy with that. With this game.
No, exactly. It's one of those like you're not going to get Assassin's Creed Valhalla levels of length here, but I think the quality you're getting for that 7 to 10 hours, at least for what we've played, is really, really
I haven't been bored yet, which I think is a really important note.
I don't know if I'd call it replayability, but there's definitely, with the deck aspects, there's a lot of instances of build variety that you can try out.
Always fun. Brett?
Yeah, I'd say try it. I'm not going to finish it probably, but I don't think it's bad by any means at all. Just try it, and I mean, with this being $30, you're probably gonna get an experience that there's a 50-50 chance that you might enjoy it more than something you would pay $60 for. So I say if you have Game Pass, especially, give it a shot.
Also note this is on EA Play with Game Pass, so if you're on console, you need Game Pass Ultimate. If you're on PC, it's included. So, yeah, be aware of that. If you want to play this, you do need to cough up the extra for Game Pass Ultimate. It's I'd say pretty good value right now because you also get a bunch of other really cool, like old Star Wars games and whatnot from EA Play and a few other cool things. So it's worth it if you're interested in those games. But
really great games like Anthem.
Man, you just had to bring us down. Well then, let's have someone else take the reins for a moment. Who wants to talk about their game?
I'll talk about Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion, which is at first exactly what it sounds like. You play as a little turnip boy in this little 2D world. I think the sort of like world exploration I'd explain it by would be Link to the Past esque as far as the overworld goes.
That's pretty fair.
Not as far as the map goes. Some equipment gathering and upgrading. You have different gadgets to deal with puzzles in the environment, stuff like that. And it tries to be and is funny at some points, and at other points I think it might not age well, but that time will come when it comes. What else is?
That's a good lead.
I think I need some prompting questions.
I do think this game is mostly intended as a short, comedic, miniature Zelda-like adventure thing with a lot of comedy and like puzzle stuff interspersed. I kinda feel like this is really heavily gonna depend on what type of humor you enjoy, as well as your tolerance. I think this game more than most is going to pick at your tolerance for a game just being a Zelda-like.
Like, is a name like Cran going to make you smile or not?
Is a character named Kakyoin that's just a cherry with the Kakyoin face from JoJo funny to you?
Not for Brett. For me,
it kind of was to me.
Come in. I don't think I don't think I made the hour cutoff for this game because I literally got to that and turned the game off. Like I got to that and I was like, this is like this is the wall. Nothing this game can do will make this game for me.
The
People will find it
insurmountable
funny.
force.
I don't find those people funny, but people will find this funny, and I don't find this funny. So
Brett was
no.
like, tear down the wall.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of the gags in this game are really
hit or miss.
A little too much.
It's going
It's
to
quantity
age
over quality.
out. It's going to age out, and it's going to age out hard.
It
soon.
reminds me.
Geez.
It reminds me of. It's not the same kind of humor, but a lot of the delivery reminded me of Immortals: Phoenix Rising, where it's just joke after joke. It is like throwing tiny little.
But
like,
here it's like
jokes at
Zoomer
you.
humor. It hits you with like there's a joke about there's a joke about about simping for someone, and then there's a joke
oh my god,
about
the tier 3 sub.
Twitch subs, and then there's jokes about pigs, and then jokes about all sorts of stuff
like,
that is just like constant. It is so much.
It's like it was written by a bunch of TikTokers.
It feels that way because it's like I in my like dark, dour, horrid sense of humor, I do like things that have like the every like joke every second, like Smiling Friends and Clone High and stuff that just throw jokes at you every like 2 seconds, like so much that you can't even handle them. But those are funny, like actually, and this is just like, oh man. Make sure you give this note to this person over there, and then he immediately rips it in half, and he does it with all the notes, and I go, okay, well. Now I'm just playing a little asshole.
It was very funny. It was very funny at first, and then it got old. I'm just like, okay, this is the thing. And I was doing the completionist thing where I'm trying to find all the notes and stuff like that. I'm just like, oh.
That was my other problem with this game, Alex. Is this game expects you to play like a completionist to keep playing it in a weird way, where backtracking is a very classic Nintendo-y Zelda and Metroid style thing to do. This game is too much of it, and it's not, because if you're backtracking, there needs to be like a reason for it. Here it's just go deliver this stool to a person that's back in the starter forest, way back, multiple screens, and you just gotta keep going, and then you go deliver the stool to get one piece of info to go bring back to this other person. I felt like an MMO fetch quest.
It's lack of really reason to do it, and I think also this is one thing that kept bothering me throughout the entire game, was the speed your character travels at.
Yeah, it's not adequate for the amount of backtracking you gotta do.
I feel like the combat, the actual fighting bit of it, and the movement speed they did not feel good.
No.
Yeah. I think this was a game clearly made by writers, and they didn't really think too much about the gameplay. That might be harsh,
like,
but that is the feeling.
I started looking right at you, and I was like, writer?
Yeah. Oh, he gets it. He gets it.
Well, if you're a writer and you want to make a game, learn RPG Maker. Learn something that has
use RPG Maker.
The tool set to encourage that type of game, and not this.
Yes, because I think I was thinking about this. I do remember thinking about this while playing it. Like, okay, Link to the Past. This is the obvious comparison, like that style, top-down, classic Zelda, whatever, like 2D exploration, action kind of thing. Link to the Past, does it have some clunk and some things that are straight up esoteric? Like if you haven't played it in 10 years, you might forget, or if you haven't played it before and you're playing it for the first time, you might not know what to do. Yes, absolutely. But that game, not only because parts of it actually feel good, it also can get past that because that's an old game. People like kind of revere it because it did things that were good way back when.
Yeah.
And this just kind of feels like a worse, like mechanically a worse version of that. It doesn't really feel like it innovated at all.
Link to the Past works so well? It's not the story.
No.
Maybe a bit the art direction, but it's the gameplay. It's the fact that it played extremely well on the console it was made for, and this is just not. It doesn't play well. It plays adequately. It doesn't play poorly.
Yeah,
but
it didn't break. It didn't not work, which is important.
This is why I think we're pushing the humor so hard, is because if you like this humor, and if you are down for like some Twitch humor, some JoJo references, some random
Zoomer
lol
humor is the
funny
perfect way to
humor.
describe it.
Well, because some of it's weird, because some of it's like millennial tax pressure, and like, look, taxes are insane.
I don't want to laugh about that.
I don't want to.
There's half of a very weird. There's half of a very weirdly serious theme, and there's half of that very weirdly serious theme in there, and it keeps getting undercut.
But then they just don't
by
ever
the jokes.
address it,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
There's that,
So-
and there's No, I can't talk about that. That's kind of spoilers.
It just feels, this game feels disingenuous to me. It feels like you go in expecting a haha, let's take down capitalism game, and then you what you get is haha, let's participate in capitalism game.
Exactly.
Well, someone thought of that title, Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion, and they're like, that is so funny.
Because it
or
is.
It's like,
that is a
or it's
good
like,
title.
But here's the thing. It almost feels like, like sometimes when you're making games, things go under like a temporary name until you find a better name for your project as it's being developed. This felt like they were kind of drunk one night when they were in like, pre-production, and they came up with that title, and then as they were developing it, they're like, let's just keep it. It's kind of funny. I don't know.
'Cause it doesn't, like, nothing in the gameplay reflects the fact that you're committing tax evasion. You're just
Besides
playing
Aside from
a
you
paper
tearing
bad
out tax
Zelda clone.
papers, and then
Which
you
is
get
the
told
same-
go do the
Exactly.
community service.
Yeah, and then,
alright.
and then the plot veers wildly from that in some crazy stuff that's just sort of like along for the ride-ness of it. It's like, okay, this is happening. How'd I get wrapped up in all this? Oh, here I go. Okay, wow, that certainly is a final boss and a twist that I kind of saw coming, but also isn't really entertaining. Wow.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
And like I said before, with the humor, it does help that it's constant. So like, even if there's like one or two bad jokes, right? Another good joke, well, depending on who you are, right? A good joke might come around, or like a couple good jokes might come around, and then another bad one. But like, it's so fast that you tend to remember the good jokes instead of the bad jokes, at least for me. Like, there are little things like item descriptions that I thought were really cute. Like, I love the sun hat where it's like, oh, arch nemesis of the sun, or like the sunlight or whatever. And I was like, that's kind of cute. Like, it's a cute little item description for something that's so mundane as a sun hat. I thought it was kind of cute.
I think I would enjoy the humor more if the gameplay was there to back it up. That to me feels like the end point of this.
Yeah.
I think the humor on its own is not enough to carry this game, unlike something like Goat Simulator, for example, and other haha funny joke games like Goat Simulator, or all the Happy Wheels, your crazy Flash game inspired stuff.
Happy Wheels, wow.
I think a lot of those work because the gameplay in those games is always so in service of the humor. Like when you're playing Goat Simulator and you clip into a wall and the world freaks out and you get an achievement for doing that, that's funny. Because the game knew that was going to happen. It's like a controlled sequence of that behavior. And here, it just feels like this framework of this link to the pasty thing isn't quite so effective for the structure of the game.
Yeah.
Plus,
yeah.
I don't know if I want to play a Link to the Past style game where someone says bro every 2 sentences.
Yeah, if I want to go play a game like this, I can go play Link to the Past or Link's Awakening.
Or Tunic.
Or Tunic.
Yeah.
Resolution. Any of the other indie games that just do Link to the Past, but actually add in mechanics.
But add in interesting mechanics and interesting ideas that
evolve
change the
upon
gameplay.
The formula.
And we were talking about the esotericism. Is that a word? I don't know. I'm rolling it.
It is
we were
now.
Talking about we were talking about the esotericism of like older Zelda games and stuff. Then you have something like Tunic that like actively embraces that, and instead of like, that's a thing of the past we can get rid of. No, we're gonna like fully commit to this and like, have it be part of the game design. So like you're taking that and you're actively like taking these older elements that maybe don't work nowadays, and you're like expanding on it and making it become more intentional.
Yeah.
Whereas this is like, oh, look at us, we say ooh woo and bro. Aren't we so cool?
There's that really old like cat lady in
Yeah.
one of the Turnip. God.
And like I said, it's like, oh, she said, "Isn't my cat Uwu," which is like groan worthy, but then her name is Cran, and I thought that was kind of cute. Like that's what I'm saying. It's like it
And then
throws so many jokes
Mhm.
at you that
and
like
then as payment, she gives you a picture of her Sona, and you rip it up
Yeah, I think if you
like you
want a
do
game with this
everything.
style of humor, you might be better served going to something like Goose Game, Untitled Goose
Ooh.
Game, which is a similar thing, but I think the gameplay is a lot more engaging. And yeah, I don't want to say that this game's bad because I don't think it is. I think this is just for a very specific audience that I don't
That's
know
not
that any of
us.
us are in.
Yeah.
And I really do think that this is something that, hey, we only played. I actually think I played about 3 hours of this game because I was just
God.
in like, I don't know, I was having like a good enough time to keep playing, and I didn't have anything else pressing because this was one of the first ones I played, so didn't have to deal with the new job or moving yet. So
I,
I
I'm
had
I'm
time.
More innocent time.
I
Yep.
got to the final stretch and I found there was a way you could canonically end the game by just blowing everything up instead.
I mean, it's just, yeah. I think the real thing here is I just don't feel like this is as good of a thing as a whole package. If you aren't into the humor, I don't think the gameplay here. And Alex, correct me because it sounds like you got further than I did. If any gameplay changes of substance happen, that would
Um,
change
so
that.
there's a weapon upgrade that you get from I forget what it is. I don't think it's a fork. It's some you get like some basic sword upgrade, but there's so the main tools you have the sword, the watering can, boots to push things. But then you also have the this neat little thing that led to some pretty good to okay puzzle design, which was like a portable portal. So there's plants that you can water that make portals, but then there's also a box you get after a certain boss fight where you can just place down a portal, and I thought it led to some creative solutions to some puzzles, which was nice.
Um,
uh,
yeah, I feel like the thing I would need from this is for it to randomly turn into a shmup or something. That's the
There,
level of difference I need is for it to
yeah.
suddenly have a shmup
from
segment.
what I've
Or suddenly
seen
it pulls Pong as a mini game out of nowhere.
Yeah.
from what I've seen from the last boss, it turns into a bullet hell briefly. But once again, you're still dealing with your really slow movement, so it doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
I want to say this too. I'm gonna chalk this up to again budgetary, right? Because this seems like a pretty small
Mhm.
team. So I don't want to harp on it
I
for too long.
I do want to say
But
before I got too negative, pixel art's beautiful. I did
Oh
really like
yeah.
the pixel art here.
I was gonna say this about the pixel art though. It's not bad. It's just to my eyes, it's very like easily mistaken for other pixel art to me. I don't know.
I
Kind of
Maybe I don't.
I kind of
It's
get what you're
like
saying.
again, it's competent, or like I would say it's more than competent. It's like it's very nice looking, but I just feel like I could look at this and look at a different like pixel art game and just kind of confuse the two personally, which is, we'll get into Children of Morta later and how I feel about that. But this is one of those where it's like I don't know, pixels games sometimes kind of blend together for me, and for me this is one of those. Not bad in any way, just not distinct enough.
Non-distinct, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, I saw you
Well,
try to
we'll get
sneak
into
in there.
Children of Morta now.
This does hit one of my pet peeves where they forgot that pixels are all the same size and they're square and they're on a grid. Because there are a lot of things that do not stay on the grid.
Mm.
And their animations of things that will have squares going diagonal and stuff like that. Just it ruins the illusion that it's trying to make of it being a pixel art, like classic quote unquote looking game. That I don't
Yeah.
know. So many other indie games are able to not have that problem. So
Well, I
it's
also think
strange to me that
there's
Turnip
like a
cannot do it.
distinction in pixel art where that's okay and not okay. Of if you're trying to emulate like a classic look, the diagonals don't work because then you
Mhm.
break the illusion. But if you're not going for that and you're going for something different, I do think you can often get those diagonals working okay. Like Terraria has the same thing. Like a lot of classic
Mhm.
indie games do, and I think it works fine in those games. But this is trying to emulate Link to the Past, and
Yeah.
it doesn't work so well when things are doing their crazy animations and whatnot all the time. All right, any other thoughts on this? Is it something you plan to finish?
I do want to say again, I feel like we've been kind of harsh on it, but like it's really not that bad of a game at the end of the day. If it's your kind of humor, that's great. The gameplay isn't, bad in any way. It's perfectly serviceable. It's not a
Adequate.
bad game. It's just I think it's adequate gameplay mixed with a type of humor that is just not for us for the most part.
Yeah.
Definitely agree with that. This is probably the only real game in this group of games that I don't plan on playing a fair bit more. I think, for me, the humor just really... It was like landing 30% of the time, and that's not enough to keep me interested. And a lot of that is probably just, this is not my humor style anymore.
Yeah.
All right. Who wants to go next?
Well, I
who wants to talk about
I
games?
did mention Children of Morta, so I feel like that would be a pretty decent transition into
Alright.
Children of Morta.
Wow.
I've seen this game described as an RPG online. Like some people describe it as that, which no.
Not at all.
It is a top-down pixel art action game with some roguelike elements, although I don't know if I would go so far as to call it a full roguelike. I think there's a couple elements missing.
I will add in
kind of-
there, Wyatt. I think I know where the RPG is coming from here.
I do too.
It's not coming from RPG as in like Witcher 3 type games. It is coming from Diablo. It's the, hey, look, we have
So would
action
you
RPG
say-
here.
So would you say that would be an accurate description? If you were
I
describing
think calling this
game
an
as
action
someone-
RPG is adequate. I think that's
Okay.
a decent enough description.
Because there are upgrades and trees and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So
Well, the main thing is stuff like, when you think action RPG, you tend to lean towards that isometric top-down perspective, towards a simple combo attack string with abilities that you then use. And then the thing that really nails it home here is it has like the roguelite synergies on top of that turn your abilities into like different variations and whatnot and more powerful and all that. And that tends to, I think, pretty accurately nail the like ARPG fantasy.
Mhm.
So yeah, I wouldn't call this like a Western RPG, but an action RPG, I think it definitely fits.
Sure. Well, regardless, you can play as a bunch of different members of this family. There is this corruption that has taken over the land, and you have to make your way through, I believe it is a mountain. It's been a minute. And you have to make it through these different zones to try and recapture these pieces of this crystal in your basement.
Basically trying to
order
cleanse
to
the environment from
Cleanse
the
the
corruption.
environment. Thank you. That is a much more elegant way of
Yeah.
putting it. Thank you, Ryan. Yeah, and you can pick between a couple of different members of this family. They each have their own attacks and abilities and their own skill trees, and you can kind of pick which one kind of suits your preferred play style. And what's also very nice, I never got to test this, but you can have 2 players, which is kind of fun. And I wish I'd actually tested this with one of you because I really wanted to, and I didn't.
I feel like with 2 players.
Is it online or is it just split screen? I wasn't sure. I hadn't tested
I wasn't
either,
sure
but-
either. Yeah.
That's a great question.
I would
I feel like
assumed
with-
it was online, but
'Cause it just has like press like
That is a risky
speed of
assumption
the
to
start
make
or
with
whatever.
any game. Let's find out. Does this have Steam online, or is it?
I
feel
was I was shocked that Lego Star Wars
It
did
does
not
say
have-
online co-op, so I believe it is online.
okay.
I feel
Okay.
like with more than one player, it would make the levels go a lot faster.
Yeah, definitely.
It also depends because you
Okay.
do. This game has a much more dramatic power scaling than most roguelikes, because I think it is less of a roguelike and more of a true. The roguelike run structure is more to just, I think, create enough content to get across the rest of the game in a way that allows you to actually play it every time you're doing something and minimize art asset usage and all that. Because this is one of those games. This is some of my favorite pixel art that I think I've ever seen.
It looks really
it
nice.
That's
is
what I wanted to.
so
That's what I
pretty.
wanted
Oh,
to point
wow.
out. There is a common misconception on the show that I don't like pixel art, and that is not true because
Yes, it is.
this game
Very true.
game is gorgeous. That opening shot of like the mountain and the tree.
Some of the
holy
prettiest
crap,
stuff I've
It
ever
almost feels like
Wow.
Pixel
I
Art
want
Studio
that
Ghibli or something. It's great.
It's
Mhm.
it's
You know what?
fantastic. I would say I was slightly less impressed with the like character design aspect of it. It's not bad. I just felt like it wasn't as like detailed and lush as a lot of the environments. Just
It,
environment art specifically, gorgeous.
I think
Absolutely.
the character design with the pixel art gets enough across. It gets
It's about like it's
their
very
RPG
silhouette
classes enough
Yes.
across.
And just so many awesome tiny details. Like I love how you have a meter for your stamina, right? But it also shows up on like the shield or the bow or something, and so it's this awesome little visual touch that was
I think they did
so
that
not
for like all of
necessary.
the 6,
But
7 characters you can eventually play in this game
mhm,
is great. Like I love the variety here of
yeah,
even just playing 2 hours of this game, and I've actually played a fair bit more of this because I played Children of Morta far before Game Pass even existed. I think because I picked it up on launch and played a decent chunk of it, and then just never finished it, or even got past the first like 4 areas. So for this
4
one,
areas. Wow.
well, because you have your little first cavern. The first section of the game takes place in the spider cavern, and then you have like a couple of other caverns that you can go
I
to, and then it keeps going. There's a lot more content in this game than any of us probably saw.
I've just barely beaten the spider boss, and I'm just like, I get story every time I die, but I've just barely beaten the spider boss. And I'm just like, okay, oh, there's so much more of this game to play, and I would really like to. I don't know if I have the energy right now though, so I'm definitely gonna come back to it at some point, and I hope that point isn't too far in the future.
yeah. I had a lot of fun with this one.
I think this is probably, if you like Hades, this is a pretty comparable experience, and I think the closest you'll find if you want something that is that like narrative roguelike type thing that still has a lot of really good progression between runs, so you're not stuck having that. If you don't like the punishing death thing of true roguelikes, I think you will like Children of Morta because it has a good middle ground where it feels like you do get punished for dying, but you also gain a lot pretty much every time. So
I would say it's a really. Go ahead, Alex.
Playing this and Turnip Boy back to back also. The movement feels really good. The movement feels really
It
good.
feels actually good to play.
Yeah. I will say I feel like for anyone who hasn't really played a lot of roguelikes before, first of all, play Hades. But second of all, I feel like this is a really good kind of entry into that. It's a lot of like dipping your toes in the water of that roguelike structure.
if you don't
But
want to jump in
just
the
go
deep
play Hades.
end, this is a good
Yeah. You
starting
should just go
point.
play Hades, but this is also a very good starter point.
And Hades also on Game Pass, although Children of Morta is not.
It is
As of
leaving
next week. It is
Yes,
leaving
it is leaving
next week.
No. Not gonna have enough time to play it.
How much is it? I wonder.
I will say
It's
this is
$20, I want to say.
this is what I call the perfect Nintendo Switch game. Like a lot of 2D roguelikes are like perfect for that.
Yeah, so for this, because I was getting ready to move and whatnot when I was playing this game, I also picked it up on my Switch because the Switch summer sale was happening. So I was like, you know what, I'll get this on my Switch, grab it with DLC, play it on there. Plays near perfectly with one major exception, which is a really persistent hitching FPS thing that I don't understand.
Did
It's a pixel art game.
Did anyone else play this on console, or did everyone play this on PC?
I played on PC with a controller.
Okay,
PC
I
with
played
mouse and
this
keyboard.
on Xbox One, the console that can play Battlefield 4 and 1 and 5 without hitching or stuttering problems. But this pixel art game took a really long time to load sometimes, and it had hitching and stuttering problems, which was very weird. Which I don't know if that's just a case of like the too many assets were too high quality too many times or something like that. It just took a while. I don't know. It didn't ruin anything for me, but I just found it very strange.
And it's in one specific area too. It's in the forest area that you start in.
Yeah, that every so often it would happen in the caverns for me too. Not like the crazy long loading or anything, but like it would just like hitch once every like 5
and
or
like
10
totally
minutes.
playable. It just is.
Yeah.
It feels weirdly not smooth in a way that you wouldn't expect a game like this to look. So I'd probably recommend, if you have a Switch, I think you'll be fine. It just is a little bit stuttery in the starting area. It gets better once you are further in. And I've been told some people don't have this issue, so it might just be that I have a launch Switch that's getting old. and at this point might be struggling to run this. But
Oh no, planned
um,
obsolescence.
no, my Switch is still mostly fine. But I think it is just a case of I've heard reports to both sides of it. It's fine, and then also other people have the same problem. Some people don't. So seems like it's a weird isolated issue with something in that first area that causes this, at least on the Switch. Uh, if you have a Steam Deck, this is probably the perfect Steam Deck game.
It's probably
Oh, yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That would work.
Definitely. And
Yeah.
I'll say this too. This is less on the performance, but like I just wanted to get this out of the way. I almost every single game I play, I am like sword and shield or some sort of melee character. I absolutely loved Linda, like the bow character, and I never
The
ever play
animations were
ranged
so
characters.
good.
I never play ranged characters in these type of games, and they did one thing that was awesome that made me love playing that character, which is her stamina is based on shooting and moving at the same time, which is such a cool, unique mechanic for a ranged bow character that I fell in love with it because you have to make so many more like just split decisions while you're using her, and it just that was great. Like that one little change to a ranged character made her so much more compelling from a gameplay aspect for me.
Yeah, I think this is definitely a good time. The Bergsons are a fun group of characters. I think the
Bergsons.
storytelling here is very
Berg.
entertaining for the most part. Um,
I like the different power-ups and items you can get too.
yeah, there's some actual interesting choices in the skill tree, which is often hard to find in a game with this many characters to play. And it feels like all the ones that I've seen, which is I've unlocked all the kids from the start that I know about so far.
Oh, you get to play as the
I think
little
there's
girl
more.
too?
Not her yet, because she hasn't even been like mentioned in the part of the story I'm in. But I have the son unlocked, and he has some cool roguey dagger tricks that are very fun to play with. So I think I think this is a really good ARPG roguelike mix that works really well.
With its roguelike element, I really enjoy how the story progresses in little bits each time you die / get sent back to the house.
Then you'd
It's
love
a really
The
Hades.
Hades staple.
it's a really nice decision for pacing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna say this too. We had mentioned narrators before. And I had mentioned why I love the narrator in this game is because his descriptions of areas, like his prose, are so over the top that I loved it. It was so, oh my god. I don't know what it is. It's just it was so like
It feels
overly
almost very
written.
audiobooky.
Yeah, it was so
Yeah.
overly written and like over the top and just I thought it was great. Like it was so, and also because of the pixel art style, it's really great. It's really detailed, but I feel like adding narration to a pixel art style can sometimes
It brings
add
the
more
budget
to it.
feeling out of the conversation, because I think this game feels like very well produced, despite probably having a pretty low budget, because it was truly like an indie production. But they use the money that they have very well, and I think
And
this
that
game punches far above its
It
weight
helps.
class.
It helps too that the voice acting for the narration is really good.
I was
The guy
just
that
about to
does
say that.
he has the perfect, very audiobooky voice, like you were saying.
Mhm.
But I have to put, I always got to be a big fat but, because while I do like the storytelling part of the narration for this, it's like it's the same thing where every game that has narration, I have to like, I just have to get annoyed by it. Where it's just like, okay, yeah, I killed all the enemies and the door went away. I know that because I'm 23, but the game doesn't think I know that. So it has to say, "Oh, you killed all the enemies and the door went away. Now you can go through." It's like, yeah, who do you think I am? Like, and it does. It was like, oh, what sort
Sweet.
of divine power will he find in this room or whatever? Like it said that. I was like, oh, that's cool. I hope they say that like once, but they say it every single time you go into the room with the upgrade. It's like the same like
Really?
one or two lines that you get. Yes, and I was
I
like,
don't-
okay, that was cool like once, but it's starting to do the thing where like,
I
okay,
think
I'm
we're finding Brett's
imagining
prejudice against narrators.
I'm imagining hearing this over and over again, playing this in huge hour-long spurts as a roguelike or whatever, getting all the upgrades and stuff, and just being like, okay, right,
I'm
Like,
just imagining.
Imagine how Brett feels when we narrate the Brett's Hell episode.
Oh God.
No, I just imagine Brett playing like Stanley Parable and getting a conniption.
No, because Stanley Parable's actually funny. Stanley Parable,
yeah.
that's part of the bit. But I think
Or
my
like
big
Bastion.
well, that's what I was gonna say. My big separating factor is that I played maybe 10 minutes of Bastion, and if that's your gold standard of game narration, that is like my brown doo-doo standard of game
Wow, Brett.
narration. I have complete opposite.
You finally
opinion on
found something
that.
we were diametrically opposed.
I know.
Wow.
It was bound to happen
Wow.
eventually. It only took us a few years. But that being said, I think if we are, comparing for what it's worth, which it isn't worth anything, I think the narration for this is done better than Lost and Random, just because the guy doing it, he's just owning it. Like those storytelling parts specifically, it genuinely, again, it feels like an audiobook. I think it's a good
I think a
comparison.
good measuring stick for that is if you took the narration out of both games, I think Children of Morta would be worse off than Lost and Random, just from a perspective of like what the narrator adds to it.
It's what I like. It's the kind of performance that I like to call the Jeffrey Rush performance, where Jeffrey Rush playing Barbosa in Pirates of the Caribbean, he's having so much fun just playing that character, and it so comes through in his performance. It's the same thing here. Like you could tell this narrator sat down in the booth and had so much.
That's what
fun
we like to
just,
call the
like,
CM
saying
Punk
these lines.
effect.
Yeah.
You best start believing in cyberpunk dystopias.
You're in one.
But yeah, he sounds like he's having such a blast reading these lines, and it comes through in the performance and it adds to it quite a bit.
I definitely am looking forward to playing more of this. I think I'm already like 8 hours into it on my Switch, not including the 10 something I had played before on my PC. So yeah, I think I'm gonna get a lot further into this and take it as a slow burn, because it is definitely a game that's gonna take a little while to get through.
I'm going to have to play more of this within the next week.
It's very cheap. It is like $20 and it goes on sale for 10 constantly. So yeah, I definitely just say keep an eye out.
I think this is absolute. It's not going to get updated like Dead Cells does, but this is absolutely a game I'd get on Switch and then come back to for a good month or two.
It's a really good travel game, because it feels like you don't forget the mechanics here that easily. Cause it's a relatively simple game, and everything is on the screen for you to understand. So it feels like you can pick this up and play it really easily. Which I really like.
Roguelikes
overall really well constructed.
Yeah, roguelikes and roguelike structures make for really, really good Switch games, because, especially if you're on the move, you're constantly picking it up and down, going from, gate to gate or whatever. So it's really good for that kind of setting.
I also think this is really, really good in that it doesn't just copy The Binding of Isaac.
Yeah, it does a lot.
Which is really, really important, because The Binding of Isaac has mastered what it's done. And if you don't master doing what The Binding of Isaac does when you make a game, you're worse than The Binding of Isaac. So why would I play your game? Don't attempt to.
That's another thing that Turnip Boy reminded me of, a sort of a worse off copy of Binding of Isaac.
Well, because Binding of Isaac is just a copy of Legend of Zelda, but it's different. It does different things, so it still plays well. I just think this is a super well constructed game, and Children of Morta is worth your time. And because it's leaving Game Pass, I'd say this game is probably worth your money, even at full price, but it goes on sale constantly. So
it's on sale right now, I think, right?
I don't know about on Steam, but it probably is on console. You can pick it up for 20% off on Game Pass until, I think, Thursday, Friday this week. So you got a little bit of time until it goes away. But if you want to yoink it and keep your save files, pick it up soon.
Also, before we leave, I wrote down a note that literally just says Pong in all caps with a question mark and an exclamation point.
Do you remember where that's from?
Because there's literally a mini game where you just play Pong.
What?
Yeah,
I'd get to that.
Oh no!
It's one of the you get one of the upgrades from it. The what are they called?
Is it like the room where you guess out of the three cards?
Your right bumper ability. What's it called? The oh god.
Your right bumper ability is that's all I ever refer to as.
Right. But you know what I'm talking about. You get that as a reward, and they have little mini games where if you succeed in them, you get like your right bumper. You can swap out your right bumper reward. Thing.
Huh.
And one of them is literally just Pong. And I was in shock. I was like, I am just playing Pong right now in the middle of this like ARPG roguelite, and it was awesome. It was just it was a nice little surprise. It's always nice to see Pog somewhere.
All right, if we're done with Children of Morta, we got one more game left.
I'm scrolling through the notes. All right. We
Here
have
we go.
Alice: The Madness Returns, which I was very happy to see on the Game Pass EA Play Landtopia. Because this is one of those games where I think the only actual substantial time that I had seen this in my life before playing it was like on demand when I was sick home from school one day as a child. There was an old channel called G4. And I went through and I was
yeah.
watching all the clips of the games they were looking at, and this was one of them, and I was like, whoa, that's like Alice in Wonderland is like for girls. What? But it actually turns out that Alice in Wonderland is pretty based. So
But that's one of the most embarrassing self-deprecating intros you've ever done.
well, that's what happens, when you raise you're a child raised in modern day America in the early 2000s. But
True.
gotta say, I don't know how many hours in, but the little numbers in the main menu say that I'm 61% through this game, and I started playing like a couple days ago, just after work, every time I got home, basically, and it's fun. This game is fun. They
But I sat
made
down
an
expecting
action.
to play an hour of this game and immediately played 6 hours of it.
Yes, yes. This is they turned Alice in Wonderland into an action platformer that is like one of the most satisfying games to play that I have played in a while in terms of things that are like actually active. Like, wow.
It's unique too. Like this is such a unique combination of subject matter, of gameplay elements, the way you have like your knife that does your knifey things and stabs and actually has like a really satisfying combo that you can do with it that feels good despite it being like a regular 3-hit combo. And then you have this little pepper minigun.
Yeah,
And it's
which is really awesome.
I'm very pleased with how they actually got the Snicker snack sound effect in for the Vorpal Blade. That was really fun to hear.
Yeah. What I kept thinking about when I was playing this is it's not so much of a thing anymore, but do you remember that time in the early 2010s when we were getting gritty reboots of like fairy tales and like children's stories? It's like Jack and the Giant Slayer and like Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters.
Yeah,
it's like Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunter or whatever.
Oh god, there's a scene from that movie that still haunts me. It's when the boy gets his face sucked off by the black goo.
Listen, that movie is so crap that I thought it was awesome, but that's besides the point. That era was like in the back of my mind while I was playing this, which makes it seem like a insult. But I'm like, wow, it's like if that era got that concept correct of like making a more mature, dark take on a like classic story fairy tale, like, and it's so well justified here because of the psychological aspect of it. Like it's a game I've always wanted to play because it's like, what a cool concept. Alice is in like a mental institution. She's like getting therapy, all this stuff. And so Wonderland just becomes this hellscape. Like, what a great just concept.
And why, if this feels like it's one of those early 2010s gritty remakes, because it is. This game's from 2011.
2011, exactly.
Oh wow.
That is my first bullet point on my notes, is that this is the most Xbox 360 game ever. Like just looking at it and feeling how like this is the most Xbox 360 game ever made, and it's pretty awesome for it because it's just like a time capsule.
It gives me like
I think in a
crazy
good
Fable
way.
vibes, and I don't know
why.
Yeah.
It has that like era of like
3D art
to
looks
it.
like it.
Yeah.
Well, it's really early Unreal Engine 3, I think. Which
probably
I think
Unreal
I'm gonna
something.
look this up. Unreal insert number here.
Yes.
Yeah, it's probably Unreal 3. And the wild thing, this game is a sequel to like a late 90s first person shooter that is like
which
impossible
you get
to
for
find.
free, by the way. When you download this, you can get it for free. If you download a little extra thing, you can play it.
You got to go find the thing that unlocks it. Which there is no way to otherwise get it, so don't feel
Yeah,
bad.
it's
Yeah. It is a wild game.
Yeah, I mean, you got all your Alice in Wonderland fixins. You got your shrinking drink. You got your growing cake. Your Vorpal blade. Your card people. All your Cheshire cats and everything are all done up in a horrifying. I don't even know what to call it.
The Mad
Style.
Hatter gushing in blood in the first minute
It's
or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, you have to like put him back together because all of his like limbs have been severed off, and you
Oh
need to
God.
reassemble him in his factory. It just everything's been completely twisted, and I think to the point where, at least for me, like think of the options that you have for the visual media for Alice in Wonderland. You have the classic Disney movie. You have the utter hellscapes that are the live action films, and you have this and the other game that came before it. I think I would like to consider this and the game that came before it like the cool Alice in Wonderland thing. Like this is
This isn't just Alice in Wonderland again. It's its own thing. It's
Exactly.
not doing
Yeah.
Alice in Wonderland, the story that everyone's heard 100 times. Again, it's its own.
Because how do you gamify that in like a interesting way? You know, like why not take that world and just like let's just like I don't know. It's like this is the best way to like have this world and these characters and make it a video game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Rather than just trying to adapt the story one to one, which would probably go forward.
Also, really
Yeah.
cool starter intro in a mental institution that I thought was far more effective than The Medium, which is a game that came out last year.
Yeah.
And had a very similar introduction. And it was like, man, we learned how to do this in 2011. Like they nailed it here. It feels like really. You kind of feel like you're going insane as you're going through the starting area because things just don't add up, and then Alice is just commenting on how this is normal for her, and it's really weird.
This came out of Skyrim ago.
Yeah. One Skyrim ago. But listen, American
many
McGee
special
figured out the way to
editions
do
ago.
it, and he didn't tell anyone else how. So it's gonna die with him.
Hey, there's been rumors of this game getting a remake, or not a remake, a sequel,
dude.
for the past like 10 years.
Yeah, it's
Dude.
supposedly been in development for a very long time. I don't think American McGee's done anything else. I think this is literally like this and the Alice in Wonderland game that came before are just like his baby. And honestly,
Hey,
like
those games released 10 years apart.
yeah,
No reason these
it's
can't.
about time. It's about time, and also no one else is allowed to touch it because clearly this guy knows his stuff when it comes to this specific thing, and it's just like I don't know. He
He's
just
got
know
it down.
it's perfect. Yeah, he's got it down pat for only two attempts that are I've heard very good things about the first game. I've done some research on it. I haven't played for myself yet, but it seems to be well liked. And
I've
this
heard a lot
one,
of good things too.
yeah. But at the same time, both of these games, like I feel like people know that they exist, but they're still pretty like underground. Like no one talks about them ever.
I do feel like I think
ever.
Alice Madness Returns. There was a period around like 2013 where people talked about this game a bunch, because I do remember back in high school a bunch of people talking about this game, and that I don't know if it was just like the group, because I had a group of friends that was very into video games, and so of course they're tuned into weird things in video games. But yeah, I think this game had this weird appeal to a lot of people, even after its release. I don't know how successful this was.
Me neither. No.
I hope it was successful because this is a wild game.
I'm looking it up because I heard the first game did really well and this one did not. And so I'm looking that up right now.
I mean, this also came out mid 2011 with a lot more competition for sure.
Also say, unfortunately, it's the other 3D game we have on here, and it's 2 for 2 on 3D games with cameras that upset my poor little head. Yeah,
this is a 2011 camera.
It's easier to deal with than
because they don't
Lost
expect
in Random.
They don't expect like pinpoint accuracy from you shooting little gems off of a giant.
Yeah,
they just.
But it's still
got a lock on.
It still unfortunately gets to me, and we're just like, oh, I'm certainly burning up and feel the need to hunch over the toilet. Oh
I
dear.
will tell you, Alex, on controller, Lost in Random is very generous with auto aim. It does aim for those crystals very quickly, so you might have a better experience with that on that. But yeah, I do think this is weird in that Lost in Random and Alice Madness Returns were our 3D games this month because they are oddly kind of similar.
I wasn't expecting
Comes
that.
into like
you have,
environment
you have
style.
you have those two, and then you also have two quote unquote pixel art games. Well, one is absolutely a beautiful pixel art game, and the other one is a quote unquote pixel art game.
It's also worth pointing out this is also the other EA game of of the bunch.
Yeah,
which
we got two
like,
really good EA games.
This isn't like, oh, it came out like before and then EA picked up the license later. Like, no, they have their fancy Cheshire Cat EA logo like right at the start. Like this was EA game.
This is like a big EA thing.
We have a really cool Punnett square of games going this time.
A little bit, yeah. It's weird how they interlock a little bit, but I don't know. I want like EA saying. Was it EA that said the thing about she's a 10 but she only plays single player games?
Yes.
Oh God, are we talking about that next week?
Well, we should.
Next week?
Yeah,
we should. But just to touch on it now, it's like you're gonna say that after putting this out. It's a really good
putting
single
this
player
and
game.
Lost in Random, and like they put out a lot of really good indie.
Yeah, they put them out.
Games.
They don't want to acknowledge them because they don't think they make as much money because they're bad at opinions.
What's one of your like most respected games that has sold really well? It's come out recently. Star Wars, Fallen Order. There's a sequel on the way, so you're just gonna start bashing single player games.
Well,
I mean, that really feels like a PR person.
Sequel.
PR person.
Well, there's a whole. I went down a rabbit hole with trying to figure out the history behind that tweet, and it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, we'll talk about it next week.
Tune in next time to find out what he's talking about.
if I remember anything I read 2 days ago.
That saga continues.
Oh God.
But Ryan, you want to know what this game reminded me of while I was playing it? And your brain might not understand it first.
I'm wondering, we might be on the same wavelength.
Did this game remind you at all of Nier Replicant when you were playing it?
Yes,
because I know we were playing this very different ways. You and I. I'm just kind of going through to experience the story, like not really stopping for collectibles too much. You are doing.
I'm having
doing
a
the
lot
Ryan
of fun
thing.
with this. Well, so I'm normally not like I used to be a full completionist. Now I'm just like I'll play if I'm enjoying it. I'll try to complete things. But I was just having a great time, just wandering around the environment, using the different. Because the thing I love about this is they give you your little shrink potion very early on. And then it's just yours. This isn't doing the modern platformer thing that everyone but Nintendo seems to be obsessed with doing, where you have like clear indications of you can use this here, and that's the spot you use it, and that's when you get your thing.
Here, I love the invisibility.
You can just use it whenever.
With that.
And when you do, you get like Alice vision that you can look around, and some things will change. There'll be like graffiti pointing to things, including secrets. And so I started going through every single area using the shrink potion to go through all the hidden doors and finding all sorts of little lore pieces and in little upgrade things for later. And it's just fun. It's just cool to see how they've done the environments here, because I think the level design in this game is very gamey. I don't think you could trick me into believing that these are spaces that are like physical world spaces.
Yeah.
Instead, this feels like a video game level, and that's what I want.
Yeah,
play a video game.
Well, and you can get away with having video. You can. To me. And again, this is all Wonderland, right? You can completely get away with having video gamey levels because it's Wonderland. Nothing makes sense. It's a perfect setting for that. By the way,
go ahead, Mike.
This isn't 100% like reputable, but from what I understand, on Xbox and PlayStation, this game sold about 100,000 units in total, which is
good for a niche JRPG.
but this is an EA game, so they're like, screw that.
Damn.
I wonder.
You didn't sell 7 billion copies? You're fired.
Yeah. But I bring up.
Go ahead, Brad.
I was gonna say I bring up the Nier comparison because I don't know if you've gotten. I don't know if anyone's gotten there yet. Because like I said, I'm going to finish this game. If you want your shmup sections, you want your rhythm games, you want your
See, Brett,
like
that's what
slide
I have
puzzles.
like a sixth sense for this. I can feel them coming. I can feel
They're
them.
there. They're there. And Ryan,
Rhythm game?
it's not like wherever there's one for each. It's like, no, this zone is the zone that has the rhythm games, and this zone is the zone that has the one-off shmup section. If you don't like it, this once and that's gone. They're just throwing stuff at you, and it's also like every single like area, zone, level, or whatever. It's like, oh, I didn't like the scenery here. It's like Burlington. Wait 5 minutes and the weather will change. And it's like if you don't like the way a level looks for whatever reason, then just
Oh
literally
my
just
god.
get to the next one and they will look completely different. Even Alice's
Alice's
outfit changes
Yeah.
for every area. It's
It's
like, why did they
great.
put so much effort into this?
I thought
It's
that was
great.
so neat.
Yeah.
It's absolutely what
But
it is.
you
It's
were
so well thought out and just really well constructed. And
Mhm.
man, I miss games like this because I think we get them
Yep.
so rarely because this to me feels it's along those lines of like Psychonauts 2, things like Nier, all these games that do these super interesting transitions to different types of gameplay and just stay the time they need to stay without being overbearing and have that kind of Nintendo-y approach to environment design where you're not going to overly push one thing. So I think it just works so well, and this is just a really fun video game. And it's definitely my favorite of the bunch that we played, I think. So
Me too, I think.
Yeah.
For once I
And
picked something I actually liked.
and environment design that I think holds up. Like I think especially just with the environments, the game is
Yeah.
still very pretty in its own way, even today. It is the most Xbox 360 game. I completely agree with that, but I think there's beauty in and
For
of itself.
sure.
I'm just
And
gonna say
maybe a
I
lot of that's
really
nostalgia, but
also appreciate the writing here for being punching above its weight class for sure.
Yes.
I don't think you would see
Sometimes.
this expecting a game.
Yeah, there was a I guess this was all in the beginning, so maybe it was intentional, but I laughed so hard when she left her therapist's office. The kid came in, the door hasn't even closed, and the therapist starts off with like, "Oh, your mom like killed your father and hung herself or whatever."
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
and
I
he's just
loved that.
it was
So
so
funny.
like, and I hadn't gotten quite like acclimated to the tone yet, so I was like,
What?
Yeah, within the first 10 minutes, I wrote it down. I quote, someone on the street randomly says the words to you, "Fark off," in an
Yeah,
Alice in Wonderland.
yeah,
I go,
Yep.
oh, okay.
yeah. I think it's one of the street vendors when you're turning a corner.
Yeah. I was like, man, this is sick.
Yeah, I think the writing and Alice as a protagonist here is actually just very interestingly portrayed, and she has a lot of the start does a lot of heavy lifting in terms of getting you invested in the character because I think they know that you probably haven't played the first game
Yeah.
when this game is here, and the assumption they have is that you're familiar with Alice in Wonderland. That's like the core assumption. If you aren't familiar with Alice in Wonderland, this is not going to like ease you into the concepts of that book, but it will play on them. It's like the Batman thing where we don't need to see Batman's origin story anymore because we know it. Unless you're going to change something, then it's not worth showing. And I think here that's what they're doing. They're like, okay, you understand the events of Alice in Wonderland have happened. Now we're dealing with the fallout of a character who is perceived as insane by everyone, and maybe also is insane.
A little bit.
And the beginning's really clever too, because I had written down a note where I was like, "Oh, the character designs for everyone is like insane and crazy except for Alice." And I thought it was like, "Wow, she feels really out of place here." And then I was like, "Oh, that's exactly what they're going
Gotcha.
for."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Well, don't I feel like an idiot?"
Themes through art design.
That's one of my favorite things when a story or anything really can like start off with something that you perceive as a flaw, and then later on you realize
You
that it was
come to
all
like it.
intentional,
It's
and you're like,
yeah.
"Oh, what?" It's so
It's
cool.
wonderful.
This just reminds me of like an era of character design that we don't see very often anymore, and we do still see it occasionally. I think Lost of Random proves that, but
Psychonauts.
yeah, Psychonauts is that idea of, hey, we can do AAA level things without going for realism. and instead take advantage of the proportion differences and whatnot that doing a video game allows us to do. We can now have everyone else look super weird and crotchety and like malformed, and like everyone's like these long people and everything. It just nails
the old
Another-
lady right before you get into Wonderland.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And another good example of that is like Sea of Thieves does that really well. It's got this kind of like more angular, kind of cartoony design to everything. But I mean, the water is like the most amazing video game water I've ever seen in my entire life. And like just
I'd hope
the
so.
way
C
everything's
is in the
animated, the way it's animated, the way like light reflects off of it is like perfect. And like it's the way it like the way it looks when there's like sunrise and sunset and stuff, it's amazing. And so they're able to take this like almost like I almost want to say like a modernized TF2 art style and then like inject a bunch of Microsoft money into it.
Well, it's like I would much rather have that than the dreary realism of Skull and Bones, you know? I just think it looks more interesting. We're not going to get into a Skull and Bones debate, but I think it does just prove a point. Yeah, we will talk about Skull and Bones next week, but I think for the example we're going for, it's a good example. Yeah, all right. So we'll do the same wrap up here we did for the other games. Is this a game you plan on finishing? Is it something that you really enjoyed? Overall takes on this, for me, I think this is probably my favorite of the bunch. Very closely up there with Lost in Random, because I'm also very much enjoying that game. But I think this is a really phenomenal game from 2011 that you'll be hard-pressed to find a good stand-in for nowadays. With the notable exception on PC, this game does not run super well. It's locked to, I think, 30 in a lot of places.
When I first started the game,
bad, but
when I first started the game, I got stuck in the like beginning load screen and I had to restart.
Oh,
yeah,
it really annoying.
Same thing for me, but then it worked after that. So I think you might run into some technical bugs just from this being a 2011 game.
I chalked that up to being the Wyatt curse more than anything, but
it happened to me too. So it's
I think Wyatt, this issue runs into me sometimes with general computer things and not really video game stuff. You might just have like a magnetic field around you.
Yeah.
You sure you don't have like a powerful electromagnet in your pocket all the time?
Yeah.
No, it's
my lucky lodestone? No.
Yeah, no. It's a lucky. It's a necklace I've always worn, and it's this ancient totem that just destroys video games for
pure uranium.
Unless it's Last of Us 2, and then it plays perfectly, and I have no idea what people are talking about. Ryan.
That was the purpose of the totem in the first place, and now that's fulfilled it.
It was created using dark magic by Neil Druckmann.
Oh god.
Neil Druckmann and his dark magic. Right.
His upcoming autobiography.
God. This was my favorite game out of the ones we picked too. I think just because all the other ones were just like various levels of not for me, from Turnip Boy being not for me in the way that if I recommend it to you, that's code for don't talk to me anymore. The Children of Morta being like, oh, that's not for me, but I can recommend this to some friends because I know they
still
like things
you
that it
if I
does.
recommend it to you.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a legitimate suggestion.
Yeah. Alice in Wonderland, I don't even know, like, I feel like people don't talk about, like, platformers anymore as a thing that they like to play, like 3D action platformers. Like, that's like that.
Unless your name's Platinum.
Or Platinum, or like you're just like a 12-year-old that plays Mario all the time, and that's it. Like, I don't know, but I don't know if you're a 12-year-old and you play this, then you're gonna grow up to be a great guy.
Gonna expose you to some real interesting ideas very quickly.
You're probably going to grow up to be a guy who's more sensitive about mental illness than most of the people surrounding you. So good on you for that.
Good.
You're a kid and you watch the Disney movie and you're like, wow, they made a video game about it. That's so cool. And then the rabbit just gets like his eyes pop out of his skull, blood gushes everywhere. You're like playing the game as a little 12-year-old. You're like.
Truly a nightmare.
I love Wyatt cock 12-year-old face.
All right. Well, with that, we've talked about all 4 games. We've done it. We're making good time too. It's time. We're gonna announce the next batch of games that we're gonna do. Because we're gonna plan on having these be roughly on a 1 month cadence. Where the aim is to have one out every month. So probably the first or second week of each month is going to be the general plan for that. Going forward, for the next month, we're going to start telling you the games on the episode so you can play them at the same time.
Yeah.
And have takes on the games when the episode comes out. So,
you could disagree with us in real time.
In real time. That's what Twitch chat is for.
I'm playing in the chat. We might listen to you.
Wow.
Yep.
I would request to go last.
All right.
Okay.
I'll knock us in first because, look, I got to learn how to do this flying swallow kick, and I want everyone else to learn with me. It's time for y'all to play Ninja Gaiden.
Oh boy.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh my
The
god.
excuse I've been waiting for.
To some proper old school character action games.
Let's go, baby.
And this is Ninja Gaiden Sigma.
That's what we've been
Not,
waiting for.
not
That's what
Ninja
it's all
Gaiden
about.
2, not Ninja Gaiden 3,
The
Ninja Gaiden
original.
1. The original and arguably the best.
Damn.
Yeah, baby, that's what it's all about. That's what we've been waiting for.
Just because Sigma 2 is not great because they removed a lot of the cool stuff, but they added some other cool stuff in return. But you don't get like the cool death animations and whatnot the other ones had.
No,
It was a real shame, but it's still good.
I see.
But 1 has all the goodies. It's the good version.
I'm excited.
Just keep in mind it is an original Xbox.
That is okay.
That's what I'm hoping for.
That is fine.
All right. Who wants to go next?
It's you or me. Why Alex is going last?
Yeah, that's right. I'll go. I'm gonna pick Destroy All Humans because I played that game when I was a kid, and there's the remake or the remaster on Game Pass.
It's a full
and I'm
remake.
excited. Yeah, the full remake, and I am excited for you all to play it because I'm about to relive a bunch of childhood memories, and I cannot wait.
Yeah, I've never played it
Great.
before, so I'm interested to see. Mine is Omori. I played this.
okay.
You want to
Alright.
make us sad.
Well, I don't know how. You might get sad in the first hour. I'd
You want us to make as sad as you are, Brett.
take you all down with me. I have played a little bit of it, but from when I played, it was very good. I just want to play the rest of it. at some
I've
point, so
been
it's-
yearning for some good Earthbound-esque action.
Down to you, Alex.
You bibbidi bobbidi squibbity squabbing. I'm slowly going insane.
slowly.
That's what Alice does to you.
The madness
which
has
is-
returned.
Which is what all of you are about to do in the procession to Calvary.
Oh,
What?
This is on Game Pass?
Yeah, it is.
I wanted to play this game for a long time.
Well, now you do.
What?
gonna
This
be
looks
a-
like this looks like the animated sequences from Monty
yes.
Python and the Holy Grail.
Yes, that's
Yes.
exactly what it's like.
That's awesome.
This is rad. I'm so in.
Yeah.
All right.
making sure
Those
I
are our
spell everything
games
right.
for the next month. And we'll be playing those and then doing the same thing that we just did with those in a month. Easy enough. Now we're to shoutouts. It's the end of the episode. And we do what we always do. We shout out something that hopefully is good. Doesn't have to be, but hopefully it's not one of those weeks where we have a bunch of bad stuff to shout out. Who's ready? Who's got one waiting?
I'll go. Shout out to the funny Lenny mission in Red Dead Redemption 2. I've been
Lenny!
replaying the game recently, and there's a mission where you take Lenny out to get drinks, and you guys get really, really drunk, and you just flop around the bar for like 5 minutes yelling out Lenny, and it's so funny. And I love it.
Very entertaining. All right. I'll go next. Well, give you guys time to think. I'm going to give a big shout out to Warhammer 40k Inquisitor Martyr, which it's a mouthful. It's one of the Warhammer games that was pretty universally disliked when it first came out, but has gotten major updates that make it really good. And I don't think I've had as much fun incinerating heretical Tyranids and other bad things as much as I have here, especially because the main character has like the Stranger of Paradise I want to kill chaos level of
Yes!
single-mindedness. It is fully
Oh.
voice acted while you were just wading through hordes of enemies in a top-down ARPG style game, and it's so satisfying. It's very good. Lots of passive trees, which I am always a big fan of. So I'm having a great time with that game. It's a nice blast 'em up 40K ARPG that is
Blast 'em up.
very good. And you can, there's like a whole, not galaxy, but a whole bunch of systems you can go to, and then you can go to all the planets in them and get missions and go around. It has like a really cool content structure for an ARPG that I haven't seen before. I think it works really well.
Oh.
Nice.
Very impressive. All right, who's next?
Me go.
Oh.
I watch anime sometimes on my own because I
Do you?
did not this week apparently.
Rat watches
but
anime?
I finished just earlier today. I finished a show called Ergo Proxy, and I would highly recommend
That's
it
a good one.
if you want to think about things and look at the color brown for 23 episodes. It is
You're really selling
good.
it. You're
Hard
really
sell.
selling it.
When the first episode ended and "Paranoid Android" by Radiohead was the credits music, I started laughing because I thought it was my brain received the signals the same way that it does when I'm watching like a YouTube poop or something. But it's an actually really good show, and I would highly recommend.
YouTube poop, which is apt because you said you're just staring at brown.
Exactly.
So it's perfect.
Very on brand.
We're in Browntown.
He's revving
Can't
up.
hide. The only one
He's
left.
revving up. There he goes.
Shout out to I'm not gonna say. Shout out to where was it? Chinatown Detective Agency. It's another. It was one of the other games that I was considering
Also looks really good.
forcing you guys to play. But it's very fun so far. I love good point and click stuff. With there is some narration, but it's not by an invisible guy. It's by the person you're playing as.
You're a detective. That's allowed.
Yep.
I'll
And
make it
it's-
exception.
Detective game
and
without
it's not-
narration would be out of place.
Weird.
It's that object observation thing. It's like
If Brett says it's okay, then it's okay.
yeah,
It's
I'm looking
100% okay.
forward to that, and both Escape Academy when that comes out.
Oh,
That's-
that game looks very good. Looking forward to it too, Alex. We gotta play some Escape Academy.
Yes.
I don't know if it's multiplayer. I hope it is, because that'd be very fun if it is.
I remember them saying something about like, oh, you can play like two people can play it at the same time, but you'd be in a different room, and it could be like an escape race or something like that.
That's cool. All right. Well, that's the show. We did the show as always Tuesday morning, 7 a.m. Eastern Time on the podcast platform of your choice, Twitch and YouTube. At Double One Radio Gamescast. That's what we're doing while Alex shows his. I don't know if he's trying to show off the
Silky
jeans.
legs.
The transition from knee to jean.
Yep.
Is what he's really going for here.
Turning into some
For a
shorts.
second, I
there
thought he
we
was going
go.
to fall off of the chair.
I am. I'm